Freddy Adu, the original American hype machine. In 2004, Freddy Adu was marketed as the next Pele. At just 14 years old, he was already on magazine covers, signed a $1 million deal with Nike, and joined DC United in Major League Soccer. America thought they finally had a homegrown superstar who could compete with the world's best. The hype was outrageous. He appeared on late-night talk shows, commercials, and even a video game cover before he'd kicked a professional ball. Fans genuinely believed Adu would carry the United States into the elite of world football. But the hype train derailed almost immediately. Adu had skill, but he lacked consistency, work ethic, and the maturity to handle such enormous pressure at such a young age. Instead of dominating, he looked like a talented teenager thrown into a man's game. His career became a whirlwind of failed experiments. He bounced around Europe from Benfica to Monaco to Turkey, then Greece, then back to MLS, never sticking anywhere. Coaches praised his talent but doubted his mentality. By 25, he was reduced to trialing at second division clubs in places most fans had never heard of. By 30, he was practically forgotten. Freddy Adu didn't just fail, he became the poster child for failed prodigies. A reminder that hype doesn't score goals. Bojan Krkic, the next Messi curse. At Barcelona, Bojan Krkic was the definition of a wonder kid. He broke records left and right, youngest debutant, youngest goal scorer, fastest to reach milestones in La Liga, and the media wasted no time labeling him the next Messi. But pressure can crush even the brightest talent. Bojan suffered from crippling anxiety, struggled with homesickness, and endured injury setbacks that ruined his rhythm. Instead of thriving in Barcelona's golden era, he faded into the background. He left Barca and tried his luck across Europe, Italy with Roma and Milan, England with Stoke City, Germany with Mainz, even MLS with Montreal. Everywhere he went, the same story repeated. Flashes of brilliance followed by long stretches of invisibility. The tragedy wasn't that Bojan was bad. He was a solid professional. The tragedy was that he was burdened with an impossible comparison. The kid who was supposed to replace Messi ended up replaced by history. Ravel Morrison, Ferguson's biggest regret. Sir Alex Ferguson once said Ravel Morrison was the most gifted teenager he'd ever seen at Manchester United. Considering Fergie worked with Ryan Giggs, Paul Scholes, and Cristiano Ronaldo, that's the highest praise imaginable. But Morrison's career wasn't destroyed by lack of talent. It was destroyed by himself. Off-field issues, court cases, and constant brushes with trouble sabotaged his potential. Coaches begged him to focus. Instead, he became a walking headline for the wrong reasons. He had flashes of brilliance at West Ham, Lazio, and QPR, but his attitude never improved. Loan after loan ended in disappointment. By his late 20s, he was drifting through obscure clubs in Mexico, Sweden, and the Netherlands. Ferguson later called him the saddest case of his career, and when Ferguson, who turned dozens of kids into legends, says that about you, it's game over. Alexandre Pato, the duck who couldn't fly. Nicknamed the Duck, Alexandre Pato was Brazil's golden boy. At just 17, he was scoring in the Club World Cup final and looking like the future of the Selecao. AC Milan snapped him up, and for a while, he looked unstoppable. Pace, skill, finishing, everything. But Pato's body betrayed him. Hamstring injury after hamstring injury derailed his career. Every time he recovered, another setback followed. Instead of growing into a Ballon d'Or contender, he became a fragile talent constantly fighting his own muscles. Milan eventually gave up, and Pato began a nomadic career. China, Spain, MLS, and back to Brazil. He scored goals here and there, but the magic was gone. Pato didn't fail because of laziness or ego. He failed because his body simply couldn't keep up with his talent. But the result was the same: wasted potential. Anderson, the next Ronaldinho who loved McDonald's. When Manchester United signed Anderson in 2007, he was hyped as the next Ronaldinho, a dynamic midfielder with flair, energy, and Brazilian swagger. He was supposed to dominate Europe. But instead of Samba magic, United got a player addicted to fast food. Stories of him eating McDonald's before training became legendary among teammates. His fitness collapsed, his performances declined, and soon he was a shadow of the player United thought they'd bought. He had moments, like scoring penalties in Champions League finals, but they were rare. By 26, he'd left United. By 31, he was retired. Anderson is proof that bad diets and bad habits kill even the brightest careers. Talent gives you a chance. Discipline keeps you there. Kurlon, the seal dribbler. Kurlon was famous for one trick, the seal dribble. He'd flick the ball onto his head and run past defenders, juggling it like a circus act. It was viral before viral even existed. Inter Milan signed him, thinking they'd found Brazil's next superstar, but reality was cruel. Opponents literally fouled him to stop the seal dribble, smashing into him mid-run. Injuries piled up, and soon the trick became unusable at the top level. Kurlon's body couldn't handle the punishment. His career fizzled with just a handful of professional matches. The boy with one of the most unique skills in football history vanished before we ever got to see what else he could do. Denilson, the $1 million bench warmer. In 1998, Real Betis shattered the transfer record, paying €30 million for Denilson. He was supposed to be the next great Brazilian winger, a step-over wizard who terrorized defenders for a decade. Instead, he became a human highlight reel of pointless dribbles, fancy tricks with no end product, no goals, no assists, no consistency. He ran in circles, did 15 step-overs, and then passed backwards. Betis were relegated, Denilson was ridiculed, and his career fizzled into mediocrity. He became a punchline for overpriced flops. The most expensive teenager in history turned into the most expensive bench warmer. Royston Drenthe, the Real Madrid rapper. In 2007, Real Madrid bought Royston Drenthe, a Dutch prodigy who had just dominated the U21 Euros. Quick, strong, fearless. He looked like the complete modern winger. But Drenthe's focus was everywhere but football. Nightlife, parties, and especially music took priority. By 24, Madrid had given up. By 27, he was completely out of top-flight football. He later admitted, "I wasted my career on partying and rap." At least he was honest. Drenthe could have been a star, but instead, he became another tragicomic case of wasted gifts. Adel Taarabt, the street footballer who never grew up. Adel Taarabt was mesmerizing. At QPR, he scored world-class goals, dribbled past entire defenses, and at times looked like a player from another planet. But consistency was his enemy. One week, he looked like Zidane. The next, he looked like he belonged in a Sunday league. Managers hated his attitude. Teammates hated his ego. And he refused to adapt his game. Eventually, he reinvented himself as a deeper midfielder in Portugal, showing flashes of maturity. But by then, his Wonder Kid years were long gone. Another prodigy who never made the leap. Alen Halilovic, the Croatian Messi. When Barcelona signed Alen Halilovic, headlines screamed, "The Croatian Messi." He had dribbling, flair, balance, everything needed to succeed. But he lacked strength, discipline, and maturity. Barca sent him on loan after loan. Hamburg, Milan, Standard Liège. Everywhere he went, the same story. Talent, but no impact. By 25, he was slogging it out in the English Championship. By 27, most fans had forgotten he'd ever been a wonder kid. Another Messi, another fail. Giovanni Dos Santos, the party boy. At Barcelona, Giovanni Dos Santos looked like the next big Mexican superstar. He had skill, flair, and charisma, but he loved partying more than pressing. After flopping at Tottenham, he became a football tourist. Spain, MLS, Mexico, he had moments of brilliance, but they were drowned out by inconsistency. Even his brother Jonathan, less hyped, outshined him in professionalism. Giovanni became a cautionary tale. Talent without dedication is just wasted energy. Francis Jeffers, the fox in the box that never bit. Arsenal called Francis Jeffers the fox in the box. They paid €15 million, a huge fee back then. He was supposed to be the clinical poacher who'd take Wenger's side to another level. But instead of goals, they got injuries and inconsistency. He scored just 4 league goals in 3 years. Arsene Wenger, usually a genius with youngsters, admitted Jeffers was a mistake. Jeffers bounced around lower leagues, never rediscovering the spark that once made him England's golden boy. His career faded quietly into obscurity. The fox in the box? More like the flop in the box.